What's happening? Did y'all hear that playback on that? Did y'all hear that twice?
Hmm.
Oh, I was trying to stop on the one. I forgot I had the YouTube live going. Here we go. Well, what's going on, fellas?
Hey,
What's
hey.
up?
What's up, Kev? What's up, guys?
How you doing?
Well,
Doing
welcome,
good.
hit me. We got some new guests. We got Mr. Terry S. joining us today, and we're just gonna call him Mr. M, Agent M today. All close friends of mine, and today we're going to talk a little bit about politics, man. I think a lot of times we don't necessarily know what to think about politics, how to view them, who to vote for, how to vet who we're how to vet who we're looking at, the particular candidates, and we just have a lot of questions as a community, as people trying to grow and get better, and exercise our rights in life. You know what I mean, and how we can make the world better. So we got an interesting cast. We got a couple new members here, and I'm hoping to have a good show and get some questions answered, man. So we can figure out how to make better decisions as we're becoming more involved in the process of politics. I see a huge push now for everybody being involved in politics, and I think it's more than I remember growing up. So yeah, so everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's get a round of applause for everybody. So what's going on, guys? So generally, I'll ask a question. For the new guys, I'll ask a question, and then everybody will get a crack at how they feel about it and their views on whatever their views on the question, and we'll discuss about it and run with it like that. Fellas, ready?
Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
Let's go. All right. So first question. Um, with everybody voting going crazy, we see different candidates, in campaigns saying, everybody get out the vote, right? Vote, vote, vote. That's all we see. That's all we know, right? But we have no clue on where to start, how to select who we're even voting for. I know, in the black community, my grandmother always like, well, we're going Democrat, hands down. That's what my grandma told me. Um, but as I've grown, man, that's not necessarily the way to go about it, man. So me trying to wiggle my way around this thing, realize other people had the same problem. So first question, how do you select who you're voting for? And to go with that, what's the process of vetting the candidates? Who want to take the first swing at it?
I
Go
can. I'm
ahead,
trying to.
guys.
I was trying to get off mute, but so for me, man, it's a little different for me. Kind of. I heard your monologue initially. For me, actually, I was raised by grandparents who actually Republican. Now, granted, they were so old that that's actually what most of the people in their community voted at the time. My grandfather was actually born in '29, so that was normal place for them. So they never voted Democrat, and they were very much so in the political process and that type of thing. However, for me, as far as vetting a candidate, I think it's really simple. You vote along your moral compass, and then somebody who's advocating for what you believe strongly in. It really comes down to that. I don't think you should ever be going against the best of two evils like that. That's stupid. Um, I'd rather you just sit out if that's the way you're going about it. But I think that anytime that someone's actually aligns with the things that you align with, it should start there, and then you work your way up through kind of your priority of list of things that you are interested in.
I'll go. I'll piggyback on what he just said. I agree with just about everything he said. I think the other thing that you have to do is you have to have a clear understanding of what the office that you're voting for actually does. If you don't have an idea of what the office does or what the function of that office is, then you really can't really make an educated decision on that. I'll give you an example. I worked on a campaign of a good friend of mine. She was running for city council, and she was running. She was actually a black woman from Atlanta, originally from Atlanta. Very strong sister. She was running in a predominantly black district, and I'm here in Greenville, South Carolina, which is a majority white area. The district that she was running in formerly had another man of color that had represented it. So as we were canvassing for her, I had people that would say, well, no, we're not going to vote for her because he went and bought my mom's groceries when she was sick. We can't vote for her, or we're voting for him because he did, these things that were of no function of the office itself. And so if you don't understand what the function of the office is, I mean, anybody can go, do those things that they mentioned, but they had no idea how being in that office was going to affect their community in the long run. And so they weren't able to make, in my opinion, I don't feel like a lot of the people that we were talking to were able to make a good educated decision because they didn't understand the function of the office. So I think that you have to start there by educating, and I think you mentioned it, you have to educate yourself first, and then you figure out who aligns with your views.
Hey, I love that answer. I never even thought about understanding the functionality of the office. We just know people saying, "Hey, I'm running for Senate," without understanding what a senator does. You know what I mean? So that's wonderful. Who got up next on that?
Can I add something onto that? I think a big concern I have is, I much like you, Kevin, on the opposite side of the spectrum. I grew up, my parents were like, "Hey, we're Republican, we vote Republican." And as I've gotten older, I've realized that how weak that position is to just say, "Hey, we vote Democrat, we vote Republican." Because I hear a lot of talk these days about, from politicians saying that we live in a democracy. And clearly, as you get older, if you study what we truly are, we're not a democracy. Democracy is always fails. That's, goes back to Greek history. And, they wrote about that. And that's why Plato wrote about the Republic and where the idea of the Republic came from. And John Adams wrote the Constitution, and the Constitution became the center focal document of, what became our Republic. The reason being is that there's a famous saying that a democracy is two wolves looking at a sheep saying, "What's for dinner?" And it don't matter how turned up, that sheep's going down for dinner, right? So I think, the Republic was put into place to protect us and to give us, put enmity between us and the government. And I, along with what Terry just said, I think not just understanding the office, but also understanding, our form of government and how our form of government is, uniquely set up to provide us strength and enmity between us and the government. Realizing we came from, all the places we all came from, right? So I really, as I've gotten older, I've really grabbed onto that, and making it personal now. When I say, "Hey, what candidate am I looking at?" If I look at the founding document and I say this person has a track record of offending the document, or walks away from the document in some way, then that immediately is a red light. And then I go to I can't read your name. I have to get my glasses on. The first gentleman that spoke, Mo Betta. What you said first, was spot on. I don't think you should be voting for the, better of two evils. I think at some point you just got to demand better of your leaders. And if it's the better of two evils, we got to do better. Because we're not just voting for them because we have to vote. We're voting for them because they owe us a civic responsibility if they're going to hold that position.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Hit me. You got something on that?
You hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. About a lot of it is about being educated. I think as Americans, we're traditionalists, and we do things merely based off of tradition, what was handed down. So the whole idea of us being Democrats was something that was handed down to us. It came from a lack of knowledge, lack of understanding that we were actually Republicans before. You know what I mean? So I think as we get educated and we put down traditions, because there's a lot of people, you tell them something, they tell you you're wrong, not based off of what they know, but they based off because they look at that as you're insulting the person who told them that. So if grandma told them you're a Democrat and you go against being a Democrat, then you're not insulting Democrats, you're insulting their grandmother. You know what I mean? We tie things to emotions instead of tying things to, you know what I'm saying, to the facts. So I think as we get more educated and we actually put down tradition and put down emotions and look at things for, you know what I'm saying, black and white, then we'll make better decisions of our leaders and demand more of our leaders.
I love it. I love it. I love it. For Big Mike that just tapped in the rod. The starting question is how do we select who we're voting for, and how do we vet our candidates that that we're voting for?
Right now, we'll see. Lately, actually, I've only been more vested in the local politics, and being as I've gotten older, I've in my professional life, I've been around some of these politicians. Some of the ones that are the Summer Lees and the Fettermans and the Ed Gainey's. You know what I'm saying? I actually had a personal relationship with Ed Gainey way before. You know what I mean? He was when he was congressman. So I tend to just stick with the home team because I know them as people, and then. I know it may be unpopular to say, but I couldn't deal with the Republican Party, the past 10 years or whatever, the Trump regime, just what it represented. It wasn't even about politics. It got to the point that when I started to educate myself on Trump and really looked at the situation, I kind of felt bad for that guy. I didn't think that he had control over the situation for a long time. I didn't think that he was saying what he wanted to. There were so many hands in the pot, and there was an agenda. It was the slogan, the agenda. That's what people would say, and for lack of a better word, I don't even want to say that, but they used that as fuel for something different. Not the government, not politicians, but the consensus, the constituents. It's like I don't have a problem with the Dallas Cowboys, but I can't stand their fans. You know what I'm saying?
How can you not have a problem with the Dallas Cowboys? I do not believe you.
I like some of the players.
Thank you. Say that again.
But yeah, so I couldn't get down with the Republicans. I honestly believe Bernie Sanders should have been our president for the past, 8 years. There's no reason why he should have lost the Democratic race to Hillary, and then he shouldn't have lost it again. And it's crazy because after they beat him, they tried to adopt all of his main focal points, just to say them, just to try to keep, the wave going. They're saying he's too old, but Joe Biden's like a year older than him. You know what I'm saying? So
was Trump. Trump's right there too.
Yeah, right up there. So that's what geared me to focusing more towards local politics. And I tend, and like I'm gonna be honest, I'm rooting for Fetterman. They're saying bad things about him, but doesn't that comes with the territory, mudslinging and whatnot.
The Bernie Sanders comment, like that's exactly the two wolves looking at the sheep paradigm, though, right? Like when all you're looking at is two parties, and you got all these candidates, but they can only roll up to two parties, and then they sabotage the one guy to get their strongest candidate. That's exactly what that is, and that's where, like, when me personally, when I hear people say the democracy, I cringe inside because I'm like, we don't live in a democracy. We live in a republic, and it was built that way on purpose. So I hate that we have this two-party system. I hate what it does to our ability to select a candidate that fits with us. And it pits ultimately, like, at the end of the day, everybody says, well, are you going to throw away a vote and, possibly lose the election for the party that, whatever of your choice or your mom's choice? Like that should never be a consideration, like was set up front. Like we should be voting for who we think we need to, not based on who the GOP or the DNC told us was the right candidate. Like that just is bizarre to me.
But I agree with you, but at some point, and going back to Mr. Dog Check, going back to some things that you said in regards to Bernie Sanders, and I don't want to take it down a whole different rabbit hole from what we originally were discussing, but we do have a two-party system, and Bernie knew that because Bernie is an independent up until it's time to run for president. So he came into the Democratic Party late, and to me, it kind of goes back to the original point of education. Not to say that Bernie isn't educated. Bernie was educated enough to understand that trying to run for president as an independent was probably not going to work. It hasn't ever worked in our country. But it kind of speaks to what we're all saying. You know, we don't like the two-party system, but it is what we have. And until you're able to affect that change, you got to work with what you have. And I think the issue that Bernie had is you understand the process, dude. You understand the mechanism. You've got to work within the mechanism in play, or you've got to work to change it. I think he did. He didn't do either. He came late into so for 4 years or an entire career, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this is what happened. For an entire career, Hillary Clinton has worked for Democrats, has fundraised for Democrats, has done all these things for the Democrats. And I'm an independent, so I'm not knocking that at all. But when it comes time to run in the general election,
Bro, Steve, you're going out. You're going out, Steve.
Go into the Democratic.
Did everybody else hear him going in and out?
Yeah, he's going. Yeah, he's glitching.
Yeah, he's going out. But before we get too far, I want to hear from Leifer. I want to get your opinion on the first question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, bro.
Okay, I want to make sure whether my internet messing up. But yeah, man, I don't like politics. I feel like a lot of the politics it's all BS. And when you deal with these party systems, I know my man said you got to work within the system, but the system isn't built for the people. The system is built for the system. So it's always party over the people. It's the party's agenda, not what the people want. So you know what I mean? We're dealing off this idea that politicians know what's better for the collective. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, you're good. Yeah. You're good.
Okay, I just heard something come back, but no, we're running off these ideas that the politicians know the best for the collective, and they're not really consulting the collective, and the people that they are consulting are the people that they're trying to get votes from. So we're dealing in this world where they're not necessarily trying to make it better. They're just trying to quell the loudest noise, and I see that a lot in local politics. Because I'm a little local activist. I try to stay out of the politics itself, and I try to just work on the political issues and try to help to fix those in the area. And you know what I mean? And I have these run-ins with the local politicians all the time, telling me that I don't understand what representative government is. And I'm like, well, I understand it perfectly well. I just think you're not representing who you think you're representing. And that's my problem. And that's why I'm never going to let you sleep good at night, making these decisions that you didn't even ask anybody for input. Like they just kind of, streamline everything. Boom, 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 boom. And they, push stuff through, legislation through that they didn't even ask anybody's input on, or they hire police officers that have a history of, all kinds of, racial crimes and things like that. And they bring them in here because of their relationship with the what is it, the union. So they bring them in and they just take the union's word for it. So we have a lot of these issues going on a local level, on a state level, on a federal level. So it's just rough. So like I said, I don't like politics, but when it comes to actually backing somebody, for me, it's like, I try to see who is aligning with the type of things and the ideals that I align with. and then I look at what actual change can they work to provide, because in all of these systems, it's like it comes to a vote. So me voting for you individually doesn't necessarily help the larger matter if I don't know everybody else that's going to be, in on these votes as well. So, just trying to make myself knowledgeable about what's going on all around, and not just the candidate that I'm able to vote for, but how does this candidate link with the other candidates to be able to make something happen on a larger scale and on a larger scope.
That's solid. That's solid. Dex, what you got, bro? How do you vet who you're gonna vote for?
What's up, everyone? Definitely, they'd have to align with my beliefs, right? So that's the first step. But I don't know. I can't really remember the last time I was like eager to vote, right? Just because we kind of got to settle for like the lesser of two evils most of the time, it seems like. And I definitely feel like money causes a big problem with the whole political process. Like it's like pay to win type situation going on a lot of the times. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on it.
Okay. So we'll go on to the next question. We'll kind of segue there. After we, make our selections, vote for whoever, based off of however we did it. How do we hold those representatives accountable once they're in the seat? Who want to take the first shot?
I mean, I can answer how we've been trying to go about that on a local level. So I started a community organization called the Switchville Community Action Committee. And, like I said, I try to stay as out of the politics as much as possible. But sometimes, things come up and, where we have to kind of be a collective voice. And I think that's, one of the biggest things you can't just be one single voice trying to make change. Like you have to have organization, you have to have collective voices, getting together with an agenda in order to move things forward, especially on the local level. When you're talking about going bigger, the federal level, things like that, you not only need an organization and the collective voices and the agenda, but now you talk about lobbyists. You need somebody that can get in front of the people who are going to listen. Yeah, and that's money. Who are going to get in front of these people and try to push your agenda and push for the type of things that you want. And I think that's one of the largest issues in the Black community is like we have all these grandiose ideas, but we have no organization. And because we have no organization, we can't get lobbyists to go on our behalf for any specific agenda items because we don't have an agenda. We're not working as a collective voice. Everybody is just kind of, I want this, I want that. And nobody's just sitting down and saying, hey, this is how we got to get it done. And that's the reason why it always feels like, the things that we want in our agenda is getting kicked to the back burner is because we have no voice there. Everybody else has a voice and have representatives in it.
I love it. Who got next? Question being, how do we hold our,
I got it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got it. The accountability. Again, I'm on my phone, so I'm trying to, massage the block button and all that. So, but anyway, as far as holding them accountable, to Leifer's point, like you got to have an agenda up front, and that way, this is what I'm voting on, and this is what I would like for you to do. So you can't hold somebody accountable if you didn't set that precedent beforehand. So that's the biggest thing. First, we got to set it up in the very beginning. This is what we're looking for, and this is what is required of my vote. Once you do that and that person gets in office, then you can go into their office and say, based on, this number of groundswell that we had that actually voted for you, remember, this is what we talked about beforehand. Then you can hold somebody accountable. You can't go in there hat in hand after the fact, asking for all these, like Leifer said, all these grandiose things. And be like, well, you didn't support me, or you didn't round up a whole bunch of support in the pre-process. So don't come afterwards now that I'm the winner trying to get something out of me. So I guess the grouping and the unification is important, but like Leifer says, we have to actually have an agenda to going into them before they get our vote. So something needs to be required from our vote. And then after that, they know that you're actually behind them. And then from there, you can say, this is what we're holding you accountable to because we spoke about this prior to your election.
So I guess you said something, right? Can we only hold them accountable if we voted for them? If another candidate wins, do we still go about the same way of holding them accountable?
For sure.
I think it looks different. I think it looks different.
Yeah.
I mean, you can obviously try to, but it's just, again, like the way our politics works, it's almost like team sports. So let's say you're a registered Democrat and you're going up to a Republican congressman. He may not even take a meeting with you. But at the same time, you can still hold them accountable. Obviously the podcast is called Prototype Dad. So even with your kids, at the very same time, you're still having the exact same conversation, whether they're going to follow it or not, as long as you're steady in what you're looking for, even though, what they say, I'm the American president, not the Republican president. So with that being said, you still represent me. So this is exactly what's important to me and what I'm looking for, regardless of winning party or loser.
I actually believe that there's no way to hold politicians accountable once they're incumbent. It's over. Like, you can ask all you want, you can lobby, but like you said, they can lock the door. They don't have to take your meetings. They don't have to take your calls. If the agenda's not in place, whatever, even if there is an agenda in place, like segues back to the Bernie Sanders thing and how Biden and Hillary tried to adopt some of his policies, just for the sake of gaining his voters. Because, and I never got a chance to respond back to Terry or Steve, but dog, Bernie Sanders didn't lose those elections. America wanted him to win. The most of the people that voted for him. It was overwhelming, and it was something with the key states, or they said it was funny. They said Hillary outpoliticked him, in the end, and it doesn't make sense. If we're supposed to be a democracy, if it's supposed to be for the people, by the people, and we're voting for who we want, why can't we have who we want? You know what I'm saying? And so I lost a lot of I kind of punted. Like Leifer said, like he doesn't like politics. I kind of punted on it because it's ultimately rigged. There's no penalty for politicians to be held. Like, the only way that you can make a difference is if they get voted out the next election. You're not pulling them out the seat. They're not going to get docked money. You know what I'm saying? They're not getting suspended or going to jail. You know what I'm saying? I mean, well, in some cases, but yeah, like for the most part, there is no way. So you have to trust, the politician, or eat crow if your guy didn't win.
So I got 2 points on that. So first of all, I love your idea that you got to vote them out. The thing that's really interesting about it is that, again, Constitution fundamentalist, like that was the whole point, is that people got limited power, limited time. That's why the president has a term of 4 years. If he does well, he can get voted in for another 4. We really, as a country, really screwed up when we allowed congressmen and senators to be in indefinitely. Like, that should have never happened, and that needs to get reformed immediately, because the majority of this incestuous behavior that goes on in our country happens because of those people who sit in there for 40 flipping years and never are voted out. They can connive and contrive all sorts of things. Anyway, I'll get off that soapbox, but that's a very good point. We should use that power to get people voted out. That should be repealed. People should be voted out if they do wrong. Number 2, I want to go back to what Leifer said. Unions, you said unions. Like, I had my first experiences working at att.com. I'm a tech guy years ago, and I get this email saying, hey, we've got this ATT special interest group. Come and join us. And I'm like, oh, really cool. I'm going to go see what this is about. And I come to find out this is ATT's lobbying group, coming to, coordinate and put together special interests voting packages for politicians that benefit AT&T and AT&T. Like AT&T doesn't have all the money in the world and all the power in the world already. Now they're coordinating with our congressman. And I mean, if you think it's just AT&T, you're crazy. It's all these businesses, right? So you mentioned it, like, the reason that we don't have a voice in our communities is because we're getting stepped over by all this big money that's in the tech companies, that's in the big business companies. And that's another thing where, you know, we need to somehow, that needs to be addressed in our politics. We cannot have a special interest at the business level overtaking our rights and our fundamental human rights to vote and select, you know, candidates, you know, in the community level. That cannot happen.
Hey,
So
the thing
I
is, it's
was
been
actually going to
happening.
piggyback. Go ahead.
My fault, real quick. It's been happening throughout the history of America. It's just that we're now more educated and aware.
Yeah, I think I made some great points. But I think the issue is we really, once it gets to executive level, we really don't have control, like you said, right? You just basically got to wait for the term and then vote them out, right? But I think what we need to do is leverage at the local level, because that's where the power is at. And I just looking at like root cause is that what we can do, like to hold them accountable, is that first we need to own our homes, right? Because that gives you a voice that you can affect something owning your home. You need to have our businesses and support the businesses that's in our communities, because the businesses control the local government. That's where they go to because they have the money, right? You got to follow the money. So we own our homes, right? We affect the taxes, right? We affect money. We support our businesses. We create our businesses, and then we control the local government that's around us, because now we have leverage, you know. And then once we control the local, then we send them up and say, hey, this is what we need on the next level, and then they lobby for us that way. But once it goes federal, I mean, everybody thinks, okay, it's the president. The president doesn't do anything in Stone Mountain or Lithonia or any of these small cities around here. It's the local government, and the local government needs our support to get there. So the root cause of what we can do is we got to make sure we active, right? We active in the community, right? We active with our finances, right? And we gotta really control where we spending our money at. We can't keep going to Buckhead and downtown and spending money there, and our business over here folding, and then we get upset because our locally we can't do anything locally, and everything is in Buckhead. You know what I'm saying? So I think as prototype dads, like we gotta look at root cause, and we gotta say what we can do. So we gotta hold ourselves accountable to that.
Hey, I'm loving it. You're still. I still can't. Hold on. Yeah, you're not muted. We can't hear you.
They trying to silence him, man. They silence him.
Yeah, they trying to. They don't. They after you, Terry. What you got, Dex? You got any points you want to make?
No, nothing to add, really. I mean, you know, at the national level, there's a lot of corruption. So yeah, control what we can. So keep it local, keep it close. You know, get you know, like you were saying, just get the right people in there and keep moving forward with them, push them to the top, and hopefully they keep your interests, you know, in mind. And we definitely need to do something about term limits for our representatives, for sure. It's a problem.
All right, we can go to the next question, right? So we already kind of touched on it as far as getting things pushed for us, right? Us being prototype dads, we all know, we already had an episode about child support, that kind of stuff, right? And how I think the conciseness there was that's the laws, and we're all just going to suffer from these laws, right? But we got to figure out a way to get these laws changed. I think we all hit a point, though. Is the focus on organizing and getting the lobbyist groups together. But if anybody can expand upon how we can actually get some laws to work for us, and I guess that really be locally, right? So anybody got anything on that?
So I could speak to local politics, you know what I mean? Because that's what I work in and around more often than not. But you know, locally, like in the town where I live at, you know, there were just like tons of ordinances and tons of I guess legislatures that haven't been written. They're not There's no things in there for discrimination. Like there was no ordinances for so many different things. And, you know, we're just finding a lot of this stuff out because we, you know, we as citizens, we really don't know all of the ordinances, even though it's, you know, it's public record. You can go up and read it. And that's how, you know, my organization kind of figured out some of this stuff is like we start looking at the ordinances, we start reading stuff, and we're like we didn't, there was just basic ordinances that we didn't have. So, you know, for me, it was just like, okay, well, this is what we need to talk to them about. We need to let them know, you know, how we feel about it. And then we did surveys in the community. We made sure that we put that information out to the community so they had that information and they knew what was going on. And then once we had all that information and we had the response from the surveys, we presented that to the local council, and, you know, we demanded that this stuff be, you know, added to, you know, the local ordinances and the local laws, and that they pass it through. And, you know, a lot of that stuff they're just starting to pass through. Like they, you know, I think they just started putting the Juneteenth as a holiday. You know, they started celebrating Black History Month and, you know, Pride Month and different things like that. It's stuff that just you would think like in this day and age, this stuff would already be on the books, but it's not. So, you know, literally had to just go in there and have that communication with them and let them know like, yo, this is not going to stand. You guys need to do something, or come next term, we're going to mount a coalition and we're going to get you up out of office. So so that's what what we've been doing on the local level. And I would imagine the higher you go up, it's similar. You know, the state level and the federal level, they're a little bit different, but they're the same. They're fueled by money. You know what I mean? So, you know, if you don't have a collective to be able to threaten them, like, hey, look, I have X amount of voters who are willing to vote for you if X, Y, and Z is done. You know what I mean? We need certain promises or certain things that you're going to look out in this particular way, in this manner, because, you know, there are limitations to what senators can do and what, you know, state representatives can do, and, you know, what Congress can do and things like that. But, you know, understanding what they can do and what their role is, and then holding them to that. I think none of them want to get out of office. None of them want to lose power. So the bigger group you can have to be like, look, I have X 100,000 votes right here, ready to commit to you, as long as you are committed to us. Then I think you have some power. But, you know, the problem is just getting that collective and having a common goal and being able to just stand up to them. Like, you work for us, not the other way around.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. But I think the blueprint has already been laid. Honestly, we can really take what the homosexual community or the gay community, what they've done to put themselves in a position of power, how you went from pretty much being obscure to being basically in power. Like, if you look at how they changed it and how they changed things and how the laws are bending, you know what I'm saying, to protect them, to give them more rights. They got the blueprint. They put people in the positions of power. They came together as a community, right? You look and see they got whole communities now where they own businesses, right? They got people they got prominent people, and they pulled each other up and put each other in different positions of power where there is a level of success that's associated with being gay. You see what I'm saying? And now they got the lobbyists, and they got people that their voice is going to be heard because they can affect things financially. So again, like I said, we know we talking about a lot, but if we talking about what we can do on our level, we need to start getting into the community and pulling people up. You know what I'm saying? Often we get it and we leave instead of pulling people and showing them the way. So, you know what I'm saying? Reach one, teach one. You know what I mean? And we need to build our schools, because our schools are trash at this point. You know what I mean? So that the next ones coming up can do the same things. And then we got leverage, man. I mean, we got to have leverage. That's the biggest thing.
That's I mean, the LGBTQ dot or whatever, all the letters, that's a formula that can never be duplicated. It's nice to look at them.
That's not true, because
why is that? Why
the
is
Latins do it too. The Latins have their whole movement, and they got the same lobbyists. Like the women
Asians,
have
the
their whole
Asians did it
group.
too.
The Asians, all of them, they all have that formula, and it all started from the Civil Rights Act. It started from the Civil Rights Act, and they took it to the next level, and we're still figuring out how to work as a collective.
There's never been overwhelming power. There's never been a wave ever. I mean, those, like you said, the Asians and the Latins, and I mean, Asians by numbers, they're overwhelming. The Latins by unity, and they actually also have numbers too outside. And immigration has a big part to play in those, in both of those movements as well. But the groups of Americans that are Black America, we're already here. We're not as big. And then as far as like business lobbyists as well too, like you have to be associated, you have to have a certain type of involvement, and so that limits the amount of people that can be involved with that LBGT movement. There's all types of people in all walks of life, and it's overwhelming because everybody's fucking gay. So they're the storm that came with them, for them to be able to, I mean, literally, you can't watch TV anymore. Like, you can watch TV without there being an Asian or a Latino. You cannot watch TV without having a gay scene.
Why is that? That's because they're the ones that's producing it. They're the ones that's directing it. They're the ones that's writing it.
They're exactly. So to try to use them as I mean, it's nice to see it, but I don't believe that it's possible for any other group to come with that type of power. The type of power and the type of change, and as drastic and as fast as it's happened. We've been doing it. We've been trying to organize for, you know what I'm saying, for forever. It's almost like they came out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? And
I don't want to say that. I think you got to remember. So it wasn't that long ago. You're talking about like late 80s, early 90s, right? And you would think about like how they were treated and the things that would happen. They weren't allowed to be out in public. They had to hide in the shadows, but they were united, and they are united. If you see them, they stick together. If it's one in power, there's a few of them that's assistants, and then they pull each other up. Our problem is we had that at one point and we lost it in the civil rights movement. If you look at what they did in Birmingham and what they changed that when they did it together. We lost the fact that we don't come together anymore for one common goal, right? We got our money and we left, or we went here, we did here, or we don't reach back and show the person how we did it. You know what I'm saying? We take it
and we settled, and now for us to try to restart, we're fighting a losing battle because now they know how to handle us.
Because we're separated, we're not united,
and like I said, to remain that way. There are tactics. It's always going to be like that, because no matter what, they're going to find some type of division. They're going to find something that we want, and or that half the group wants. There's going to be dissension.
So why didn't it work for the LGTB? Their group. Why didn't it work for them? Why did they become, like you said, that fast and that much power? To the fact, if you say a slander now, you damn near go to jail.
Oh, you said it. It's the unity. Yeah. It's the unity. But like them being so new, like there's no. Like, how do you beat them? You know what I'm saying?
We're not trying to beat them. I'm not saying we beat them. I say we join them, and they made a blueprint. If we're talking about
holding, don't want anyone else anymore because we kept them out prior. They did it on their own. They're a closed circuit now. You know what I mean? But right now, like, if this is something they don't like or don't agree with, they're not joint. They don't need to join anyone. They don't need anyone. You know what I'm saying? They got what they want. They're in power. But
this part of this is that point that I made earlier. I mean, this is the two wolves. I mean, the division tactics are exactly what the wolves do, and that's when you're in power. You don't want to lose power. You divide into smaller groups so that you can maintain power, and that's what the wolves are doing. That's why the whole idea of democracy. We've got to stop saying democracy. We got to say republic, because we unify under the banner of the Constitution, which gives us our God-given rights. If we keep saying democracy, we keep paying homage to the two-party system. We're the two wolves that just divide us. And I fully understand that there are divisions, differences between all of us, but I think there's more unified material that we don't celebrate, right? The fact that, we want to be free. We want to, have our ability to speak openly. The fact that we want to bear our arms, like, there's a lot in that Constitution that was founded, and it was really hard to think through, and they thought through it for a reason, and they put it there. And we should all be unifying under that. If we play cult of personality and identity politics, then we're just feeding into the wolves game and allowing them to split us up. And I don't, as fathers, I don't think that's what we want to do. We want to unify under something with a broader group. We don't want to separate ourselves and become a smaller group.
So if I could catch what you're saying is the wolves are separating, but still at the top of it, they're still together. So to us, it looks like it's a separated group, but
they're
in
powerful.
actuality, it's always the same group controlling whatever they want. But it just looks different.
It's the wolves.
Smaller.
Two sides of the same coin.
That's it. It's the wolves. The wolves always are powerful. The wolves are in power. They're going to continue to use their sharp teeth and their cunning to, destroy all of the sheep who are allowed to be separated into their smaller groups. And if you continue to be, in that herd mentality, you get scattered. So we got to find a bigger plot, right? Like, what do we unify under? Because if we don't unify under something, then you're never going to get the power. You can't just be LGBTQ. You can't be Black community. You can't be Latinx. Like, we have to be Americans, and we have to unify under, this idea of what we are, as a stronger group. And I think it goes back to what Leif here said. Like, if I'm going to, go out and do community organization, I'm not just going to focus on, people of my background. My grandfather's Chickasaw Native American. Like, I'm never going to get off the res. You know what I mean? Like, I got to go bigger than, like, I got to think about, the Constitution. What is it about the Constitution that, protects us as individuals against the government? And that's hopefully a message that unifies us and brings us to a bigger pool of people and more power, to conquer the wolves.
Mr. Terry, I wish your mic I wish your mic was working, man. I don't understand what's going on. You could, I mean, if you could use the link from if you got your phone, you could use the link from your phone too. But I wish your mic was because we really need to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, because he started off with a bang too.
Yeah, right. So it's kind of like, dang, like that's that South Carolina. It's like, no, just kidding. Shots fired.
Are you close to your router? Are you close to your router? Move a little closer to your router.
So here's the thing, right? We got about 12 minutes left, right? I'm not going to keep you guys all night. Sometimes we go over, but it is what it is. This is kind of like we're going kind of freestyle at this point, right? To the guys that's really into politics and really paying attention. I'm not really that heavy, but I'm interested. But a lot of it is too much to chew on. But what things that's going on right now in the world of politics should we be paying attention to? Like we hear about a lot of the smoke screens and don't pay attention to this, or you know what I mean? It's like trick, like look at this hand while the other hand is doing something else, right? And we all could agree that that's going on. So what's your ideas on what we should be paying attention to, especially when it comes to these upcoming elections? I'm already getting like notices on my door. Hey, vote for me. I'm like, I don't even know you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of greet that with like a stay away from me vibe. But the things in media or whatever you guys are seeing, what should we be paying attention to out in the world when it comes to the world of politics? Who's up?
So let me go back to a second to what my man Professor M was saying about dang, I don't want to lose my thought about what he was saying about
the wolves.
Wow.
The wolves.
About the
unifying
wolves and unifying and being one voice instead of LGBTQ, Black, Latin, and you know what I mean. They're coming together. And the crazy thing is, like, in the initial stages of Donald Trump's, like going into the presidency. Like I was thinking like his whole idea was like to get rid of all these labels that are separating us, and let's unify under a nationalist banner of, let's all be Americans. And and somehow to my man's point, that got, that incited certain groups of people, and they took it and ran with it. And now the whole conversation changed, and now it's about, a bunch of things. And you can't, once you open Pandora's box, you can't control what comes out of it. So, I think a lot of that moves things into a negative direction, to where I just wasn't comfortable. Like, I can't back this guy because of the type of people that are backing him, and I need to stop this right now. But, to your point, to the new question, I didn't spoke myself right out of the new question. Remind me what the new question was.
What things should we be paying attention to as far as politics currently?
Okay,
that's going on in the world?
Now I got it, because you with a lot of these appointments into the Supreme Court, man, you're seeing things like, Roe v. Wade get overturned after I don't know how many years. Was it 40, 50 years? It gets overturned. Now they're looking at other things that have gotten passed, during that civil rights, type of movement and stuff. And they're looking to overturn a lot of this stuff, man, and to really break down a lot of this federal power, and to be able to give the states individual power to make their own decisions, which sounds good, but can also be dangerous. You know what I mean? Because at some point in time, you need somebody to be like, hey, look, this on a large scope should just be eradicated, and it should be stopped. And there should be no distinction between what state and federal is doing. But that's something that you got to watch out for seriously, because, right now it's super, 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 super conservative in these rooms over here in the Supreme Court, and some of those changes might be coming down the pipe. So you got to just pay attention to what's going on the larger scale with some of these bigger cases.
I want to hear from Professor Mike. What should we watch out for, dog?
So, the biggest thing for me that's got me concerned is the money situation. We've always run a deficit. We've always had a strong deficit, but it really scares me when we start to see inflation on our currency, because we're printing too much money now. This is not new. Like, you heard Mitt Romney, who was a Wall Street guy years ago, start talking about how to tackle this when he was running for president. And people were like, wow, that's a crazy idea that we could get that bad. But, the way inflation's gone since he was talking about it when he was running for president until now is like, it's not even close. Like we're out of control. We're like a boulder rolling towards the edge at this point. Like, are we going to be able to pull it back in? And we continue to print money at a massive scale. And now we're sending it randomly to this war overseas. And I think it's a really dangerous precedent to set, where we're saying, hey, we're just going to make as much money as, we need to print. And we're going to divest it from our local communities and our own like national interests. And we're going to send it abroad to this, to this NATO cause, or however you want to see that conflict in Russia, or on the border of Russia and Ukraine. So, that to me is really concerning, because that, we're already inflecting inflation. We're taking billions of dollars out of our economy. We're sending it abroad. And, God forbid it actually breaks out to where a NATO, person gets killed and we actually end up in a war there. And now we're putting, American blood on the line as well. I don't care what special interest group you're from. Nobody wants, to go over there and die for a political war. So, I think that situation's really ugly. I think it's really a dangerous place to be. And I think the financial situation that we're putting ourselves in, the amount of money we're committing to it, and the amount of resources could put us in a really dangerous spot financially. That's the part that's got me concerned more than anything.
See if Terry's mic works.
Let's go, Terry. No mic.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, just in time to sign off, right? I had so many points, man.
Start your points. Say them all.
I can't remember. I apologize, guys. I can't remember who said it, but going back to something earlier that was said about getting involved in local politics, I can't agree with that more. But the thing is, we've got to look beyond just the traditional mayor, city council, county council positions. We got to look at the planning commission, the waterworks, school board. There's so many different areas where we need to get involved, where we can affect change on a local level, and that sways everything. I forget which gentleman mentioned, making sure the businesses, follow the money and making sure that we know what businesses are in play. The school, the planning commission, all those local entities, all affect all of that, and we can see the erosion of our communities just because we're not involved. When the sign goes up in the neighborhood that says zoning board meeting, and nobody from the community shows up, and then all of a sudden decisions are made without our input, and we come back and we're reactionary. And it kind of speaks to something else we said, where we can't affect change once people are in office. A lot of times it's because we are reactive as opposed to being proactive. We've got to be proactive when the decisions are made. The only other thing I want to say is to the gentleman that was talking about, we can't really replicate what the LGBT community is doing. I disagree with that, only in the sense that we have to, it starts with the education of our own community. And once we educate the community, not only on just what the issues are, but how their voice does give us power. I'll give a quick example of what I mean, and hopefully it'll connect the dots. So I live here in Greenville, South Carolina, and for the longest time, the outdoor festivals only had like rock and roll and country music acts. And I was at work one day, and I was talking to one of my coworkers, and she was asking me if I was going to one of those festivals, and I said no. I'm boycotting that festival because they never bring in any kind of R&B act, so they don't bring in anything that appeals to my community. And she said, well, have you volunteered your services? Have you volunteered your time? I was like, well, not really. She said, well, my husband is on the planning commission for these events, and he's a volunteer. Everybody on that committee are volunteers. We've looked for people from your community to participate. Nobody has chosen to participate. So if you don't care enough as a community, if you don't care enough to give your time and effort to be a part of the solution, why should you expect other people outside your community to care more about your issues than you do? And that is what we have to stress to our community. I think once we stress to our community what their responsibility is toward affecting change, then we start bringing that collective together, and then we start having that influential block that everybody else was talking about. So it can happen. I understand the idea of being disaffected just because it seems like we have been dealing with this so long. We keep talking about the same things, and once you know better, you should be doing better. But I think those of us that know better are still a very, very big minority within our community. We've got to start from the ground up and build that coalition. But it starts with us, and we have to, before we can hold them accountable, we have to hold each other accountable. And once we hold each other accountable, then collectively we can begin to hold the others accountable. I hope that was worth waiting for.
Absolutely. I mean, we're not signing up though. So I mean, we still got to hear from Hit Me. We still got to hear from Mo Better. We got to hear from Dex. What's the things you guys are seeing that we should be paying attention to, guys? You know you're muted, right?
I said my man just dropped the mic. I can go to bed off of that, son. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I can't. There's nothing else to be said, man. That was it, man. That was it, man. That said everything for me.
What you got, Mo?
No, that was dope. But to everyone else's point, man, I'm gonna be looking at the money and, man, how the economy's looking, because like, you know, as somebody who understands real estate and understands business, man, this is dire straits right now, man. So the rich are only going to get richer in this. So, you know what I mean? We really have to get ourselves together, and we really have to kind of be voting with our interests, because this can get real ugly if we don't change direction or course correct real soon.
Hey,
What you got, Dex?
Yeah, Mo said it, but I was looking at it definitely from a financial standpoint. You know, I think as fathers, we should all be focused on getting our financial house in order, because they will weaponize a recession against us, and they being those wolves we're talking about, right? Where are we going to be in 24 months, right? We're going to be looking at a presidential election, right? And are we going to be coming out of a recession? Are we going to be deep in a recession? Like, what's going to be happening at that time? So we need to probably clean up our houses and make sure our stuff is in order, you know, before we start taking the biggest steps that we also need to take as well.
Man, what you got, Hit? You got something to say about it?
Yeah, man. First off, man, like when you first said, you know, this is gonna be a show about politics, man, I was kind of sketchy on it, man. But this turned out to be a really dope show, man. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I learned a lot. Listen to these guys, man, these men, and I think this is like I'm walking away with an action plan for myself. You know, like I've never been a part of the school board meetings. I see it all the time. I see the zoning meetings all the time, and it's 100% right, because that's what affects like how my community looks. The money that's taken out of the community, the jobs that we're losing, and you know, I'm like right now where I'm at, it's a food desert. You know, the only option for food is really Food Depot. And I mean, that's something that I'm not eating that. You know what I mean? So like things like that, man, this health, everything, how health and finance, everything that plays a part in how we live and how we make decisions, man. But I want to shout you out, man. It's a dope show, man. And I learned a lot on it, man, for real. So shout out to all you fellas and all the input and everything you guys brought to the table, man. It's a beautiful thing.
I agree.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you guys, man. I took some notes as the show went on. We're going to start having a summary portion of this show, you know, just to kind of go over what we spoke about, you know, some key points that I was able to catch, and also to make sure that we leave giving the right message to people, you know what I mean? So some of the points I got is understanding the functions of the office. I think that was a really dope point that was mentioned earlier in the show. A second point is focus on local politics, getting involved that way. In that way, I guess, based off this show, we can effect the change upstream as long as we, you know, handle our small parts. Organize some groups, get together and unite. That was a common theme amongst the show. That was a big thing. Hold them accountable. So once, you know, let's not just get out there and vote. Then let's go hold them accountable, right? So that became very important. I love that. I love that point. Support the community resource boards. You know, so go to the school boards, go to your, you know, what utility supplies, or, you know, whatever's out there. Let's get to those meetings. As prototype dads of our community, we stress being a part of the community. We stress changing the community. We stress being fathers, you know, even to children that's not our own, and it's a part of being a prototype dad in the community. So we can add that to something we have to do too, right? Is getting to these board meetings. That's now part of our role as prototype dads. Other points: be proactive and not reactive. Terry No Mike, he kind of laid that jewel on us at the end of the day, and that's huge. Like, you know, sometimes like we don't even know what's going on and things happen, and we're like, hey, wait a minute, man, this is bogus. Ain't nobody asked me nothing. Well, there was a meeting about it. What else? Economic development corporations. Is it what you hitting for? What you hitting on that?
Well, I'm just saying in general, like, you know, different municipalities, they have economic development corporations. Like the one here in Swissvale is called SETCO. And, you know, it's crazy that we're having this, conversation because I myself also, because I hate politics, I was like, up until about the last 5 minutes, I was like, I'm not getting on this call tonight. But I'm glad I did because you know what I mean. I'm glad that we were able to speak on a lot of this stuff because, but yeah, this the Economic Development Corporation, like they're making decisions on a lot of stuff going on in your neighborhood, like you know what I mean, different housing stuff and all kind of stuff going on. And if you're not involved in that, you're not at the table. And I think there was a lady in town. She was on it for maybe 20 years, I think, and she's like, "I'm retiring, and somebody needs to step up." And I mean, I was on so many boards and committees and stuff that I was just like, I don't have the bandwidth. And you know what I mean? Just being in this meeting now is letting me know like I need to plug back in because there's nobody that looks like me that's on there now that she retired. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of different committees and different groups like that in and around town that, you know what I mean, there's no representation. And you know what I mean? And they're not necessarily communicating with everybody efficiently to even let them know that this stuff is going on. So uh, I'm glad that I chimed in because that lit the fire under me. So I'm gonna go ahead and get in these spaces where I need to be, so I can be a voice for the people that I represent in the community.
No, that's dope. I'm glad you added a lot to the show, and I'm glad you decided to join because this next point is yours. Watch the Supreme Court changes. You know what I mean? So we got to pay attention to what's going on at the Supreme Court level, and the biggest one that everybody I guess we could all kind of agree on is watch the money, follow the money. What are they doing with the money? And that'll tell us most of what we need to know, where we need to be looking, and what we need to be worried about. Anybody else got something to say before we tap out? All right. Well, appreciate you guys. You know what I mean? Great show.